with the cameras and live stream. Please note that the YouTube live stream sound recording is dependent on the correct use of the microphones. Therefore, can I ask that when invited to speak, you remember to turn on your microphone and turn it off when finished. Please reference a page or paragraph number when referring to the agenda papers and keep your contributions as clear and concise as possible. So, apologies for absence. Clark, do we have any apologies for absence, please?
Thank you, Chair. We have received apologies from Councillors Burrell, Cook, Dodsley and Jennings.
Thank you very much, Clark. It is recommended that the minutes of the meeting held on the 2nd of July 2025, to be found on pages 7 to 12, are approved as a true and accurate record. I so move. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Stilts, and can we agree that, please? Agreed. Fantastic. Declarations of interest. To disclose the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interests, other registrable interests and non-registrable interests relating to items of business on the agenda, having regard to paragraph 9 and appendix B of the Code of Conduct for members. Members are reminded that they are also required to disclose any such interest as soon as they become aware, should the need arise through the meeting. Do I have any interest on this item, please? Fantastic, thank you. Okay, so we move to the substantive item, which is item 5. And it's, I'll read out the full number, 2500196 full and 2500197 LBC, land at Maldon Hall, Spital Road. Please note that a member's update in relation to this application has been circulated prior to the meeting. Tonight we have Mr. Bailey here to present the report, so I'd appreciate if you do that for us, Mr. Bailey. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we have in front of us an application for land at Maldon Hall, Spital Road. It's a joint planning and listed building consent application for a single-storey extension to an existing double garage building to form a new 2-bedroom dwelling house. That's the site there. The listed building consent is required because the structure is located within the curtilage of the listed building known as Maldon Hall, which you can see to the south of the site there. Here's a quick overview aerial photo of the site, showing its location relative to the surrounding cluster of buildings to the north of Spital Road. It may actually seem familiar to members. You may recall that at the last meeting in July, the committee resolved to grant permission for a single dwelling to the rear of Maldon Wick, which is to the south of the site, to the southeast of the site here. Moving on to, just to provide a bit of context and linking the site to Spital Road, here we have the main junction which leads on to the access road leading northwesterly in a northwesterly direction. This is the existing red brick garage structure, which is to be retained and altered as part of the proposed development. Slightly wider view of that, showing the verdant context around. There are a number of timber structures to the rear of the garage, which would be removed as part of the scheme. These are relatively hidden from view in the wider context as it stands. Here's a longer shot from the garden space to the west, showing where those structures are behind. And finally, a view from the garage back towards Maldon Hall to the south, demonstrating the visual separation between the site and the listed building itself. We've used a winter photograph here just to demonstrate that even when the trees are out of leaf, there would be no harm to the setting of that listed building. The council's conservation officer has considered the proposal in detail and has raised no concerns in terms of the listed building or heritage matters, subject to material details being submitted. Moving on to the scheme itself, the development comprises the conversion of an existing garage structure and a new linked contemporary extension to the rear to create a 2-bedroom dwelling with associated parking and landscaping. Here you can see the existing and proposed layouts and its position relative to Maldon Hall to the south. The existing garage floor plan here with timber stores as per the photographs, and moving on to the actual proposed layout, which as you can see has an angled single-story extension that is contemporary in style with a standing seam zinc finish, as you will see from the montages to follow. This provides the main living space for the dwelling, with the bedrooms provided within the red brick garage and a mezzanine bedroom above, with rear-facing dormer within that roof slope here. While we're on the actual drawings themselves, here is an overlay of the scheme relative to surrounding trees. Because of the nature of the very verdant nature of the site, we had quite in-depth discussions on this matter during the course of the application. We held a meeting on site with the council's tree consultant, the applicant's agent, the architect, their engineer. Various detailed information was provided in respect of ensuring that the surrounding trees on the site would not be affected by the proposals, and subsequent to that meeting, a series of detailed engineering drawings have been provided in that regard. The tree consultant is very, very happy with the proposal now, and subject to some additional information by way of condition, I must add. Some visuals for you. Here is the proposed front elevation of the garage. As you can see, it's not particularly different to what's there at the moment. I've actually added the original photograph in there for comparison. Visually and in terms of its massing, it doesn't really change in terms of the overall setting. Here you have a longer view from the western garden, showing the new, more contemporary structure here with this zinc seam finish. Again, that's sort of a comparative viewpoints, crudely. Apologies, it's not accurate. And finally, an aerial shot showing the detail and the way that the old and new architectural styles fit together. I don't have a comparative photo for that one. Moving on to the recommendation then in the report, as already explained earlier, the considerations in this case are actually very similar to those given in determining the application for the development at Maldon Wick at the last committee. In terms of the principle of development, the site is located, as with Maldon Wick, outside of the settlement boundary of Maldon, and therefore would not technically comply with policy S8. However, due to housing land supply position, the tilted balance applies as set out in the report. As discussed previously with Maldon Wick, given the site's proximity to Spital Road and the services within Maldon itself, and taking into account the recent decisions locally, it is considered that the site is in a sustainable location and acceptable for residential development in principle. The proposed design is considered to be sympathetic to the surrounding context and would preserve the historic interest of the nearby building, and would not result in any harm in terms of residential amenity, highway safety, trees, ecology and biodiversity, subject to details being provided by way of planning conditions as set out in the report. Just to add, a members' update was circulated in relation to archaeological conditions. The County Council archaeologist has suggested that some investigations take place prior to commencement of development in order to establish any potential for archaeological remains at the site. That has been agreed with the applicant. So the recommendation is that planning and listed building consent be granted subject to the required RAMS contribution and the conditions set out in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Members, I now invite you to put any questions or make any comments you have on the report. Do I have anybody who has any?
Can I suggest that we agree with the recommendation of the officers?
Oh, yes.
Sorry, can I suggest we agree with the recommendation of the officer and accept this application?
Thank you very much, Councillor Driver. Okay, do I have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Stilts, I'll take you first. Okay, so in that case, I'll put that to the vote. First of all, for granting planning permission, subject to the conditions as detailed in section 8 of the report and the submitted unilateral undertaking. So we'll take that one first. Okay, do I have any abstentions? No, nobody against? Because I didn't see, you're against. Okay, so Councillor Lagan is against. Would you like that? Well, it's away, it's fine. Yes, we won't go to a recorded vote. Fantastic. Okay. And so that passes. And then if we can go to our second recommendation, which is to grant listed building consent subject to the conditions as detailed in section 8 of the report. Do I have Councillor Nick Spenceley proposes that? I'll put that as I have a seconder. Councillor Simon Burwood. We'll put that to the vote. Okay, so everyone agrees with that? Nobody abstaining? Or I haven't voted myself, but I didn't really need to, so I think I'm going to leave that exactly there. Okay, so that concludes that item. Thank you very much, Officer. That's much appreciated. Now we're going to move on to the next part, which is it's very quick, but it's not quite as quick as I would have liked. But anyway, which is item 6. Any other items of business that the chairperson decides are urgent? You'll be glad to know there are none, because I know we've got a very long meeting tomorrow as well, and nothing to put in here. And I'll now close the meeting. Members, thank you for your contributions this evening. I now draw the meeting to a close at 7:42 p.m. and I'd advise, please, as the meeting is now closed, members,